Okay, so for this video, I am just gonna have to do a overlay audio over because there was no way I was gonna be able to make any sort of commentary during this fight. It was just too hard, and I had to be too focused. So this is the alleged hardest boss in all of Sekiro, and starts off with Genichiro here. There's not really a whole lot to say about this opener to the fight. It can mess you up if you're, asleep at the controller. It killed me a couple times, but it's really just a warm-up for the actual fight, so you dodge that one move where he jumps over. There's a couple moves you have to parry, you can Makiri counter that, and that's about it. You can flawless it pretty easily, but the real meat and potatoes is the Isshin fight here. So that was the first phase. You got 3 more after it, so it's a pretty hefty 4-phase fight. And this first phase here, he just kind of sticks with the sword. There's that move you got to look out for. He can sheath his sword and do a couple different moves, so you kind of got to be on your toes with which one he actually ends up doing. And it caught me off guard there, see, and I didn't know what to do there, so I jumped and parried when I should be jumping over him, and he did it again, and I died. So that move's pretty rough. You gotta watch out for that one. But other than that move in particular, see, he's been doing that same one where he unsheaths and does the Makiri counterable move. I finally caught on there. But other than that, it's really just a sword fight, and it's not crazy hard. I eventually caught on there, and really once you get those couple things down, this phase is cakewalk. Finally moving on to phase 2. This is where the difficulty is. He picks up his big battle spear there, and it gets immensely harder. Not only is his posture way harder to build up, but his reach is now way longer, and he has a pistol that he will shoot at you and will kill you in one shot, no matter your health. I am at in-game levels of health, almost fully maxed out, not quite, but almost. And it'll rip you up, so you gotta be careful with that one. But his sword strikes are still pretty easy to parry. His spear, that move right there, you can bait it out with using a healing gourd kind of far away from him, and he will always do it. It's a pretty easy, guaranteed counter. For the Ichimonji double he just used right there, I failed to block it or dodge it, but you really need to just get out of the way of that one. The spear right there is pretty easy to Makiri counter, and you can jump over that move or you can parry it. I didn't know at this point that you could parry it, so I just jumped over it to be safe. And once you beat phase 2, you're kind of home free basically. I don't want to say it's a free phase, because if you're a retard like me, like just there, you can miss countering the lightning, and this phase is a lot harder. Fortunately, I figure it out here later down the line, but this third phase feels like it's kind of a congratulations, you made it this far type thing. So this phase is not that hard, so I finally get the counter there, and if you do successfully counter his lightning, this fight becomes immensely easier. It builds up his posture like crazy, and it does a ton of damage to his health. The only other new move is that one he uses there. You can just parry those and you'll be fine. And other than that, you can bait it out with your gourd, and then just get like 1 or 2 successful lightning parries, and this form is pretty much over. So that being said, is this the hardest boss fight for me in all of the Souls games? I'm gonna have to say absolutely not. This particular version of this boss took me maybe 45 minutes. Everybody really hyped this up to be way more than what it was. The first and 4th phases really are basically just free. The first one, once you get it down, you can pretty consistently beat the first phase. The only one that I really, even after fighting it for a pretty immense amount of time. I'd never really quite learned what to do in the second phase. I was kind of just, freestyling it the whole time. But, I mean, with here, he's not going to regain his posture crazy quickly, so as long as you're just applying pressure, or if you need to heal, you can use that gourd trick to, get him to come in, and you can get that free parry off. So I gotta say, after doing, the whole game and expecting this to be the hardest one ever, I was kind of let down. But as you can see on screen, once you beat him, you unlock this thing called the Gauntlet of Strength. Now this was interesting to me because at this point I was, kind of let down by that final boss. Not saying he wasn't hard, but not nearly as hard as I was expecting. I would not put him ahead of Melania or Consort Radon or even Orphan of Kos from Bloodborne. Those were all way harder, in my opinion. But, however, I'm pretty sure the Gauntlet of Strength was added on later to Sekiro. I'm not entirely sure. But what it is it's a gauntlet of different bosses you can fight, and it'll tell you, like, you gotta fight this one, this one, this one, this one. You have to beat them all first try in a row. So it's kind of difficult to unlock. I'm just gonna talk over the end of the game here. You have to kill the Divine Heir, and then you become the sculptor that's helped you through the entire game, and it's a pretty sick ending. But regardless, the Gauntlet of Strength, you have to beat them all first try. You can rest and replenish your health in gourd seeds, so it's not like ridiculously, absurdly hard. You can rest. You just have to first try like 4 different bosses in a row you fought in the main story. And they're a little buffed from what I can tell from their actual in-game counterpart. But by this point you have a lot more posture, a lot more health than you did when you fought them. So it shouldn't be that bad. I did it first try and then immediately got slaughtered by the final boss, who I will talk about in a minute here. It'll tell you who you're fighting in the Gauntlet of Strength, except for the final one. And the final one is who I want to talk about here. See, I don't really hear anyone talking about the final boss of the Gauntlet of Strength. I mean, he's not really in the game per se. You have to beat the game first. I don't know if there's a particular ending you have to get, but once you kill Isshin and get like the regular ending here, you get it, and you get 2 different versions of it. I haven't fought the other final boss of the other Gauntlet of Strength, but from what I can see, he's pretty hard. He killed me pretty quickly, and I had already just beaten these 2 bosses back to back, so I didn't feel like doing a third one. But maybe he's incredibly hard too. But from what I have seen, what few people do talk about this boss, this is the hardest in the entire game. And Sekiro, being the hardest game in the series, or what most people say is the hardest game in the series, you would think this would be the hardest boss, hand down. And the one at the end of the Gauntlet of Strength is so much harder than the Sword Saint version of Isshin. And I'm going to be fighting it right here. So once you beat the game, you not only get some new drip, like I'm clearly showing off here, you get the ability to do this Gauntlet of Strength, and then once you get to the final boss, you can just go to him on your own, and this is him right here. So what makes him so much harder is this move he immediately starts the game with will instantly kill you, no matter what. I got super lucky and parried it at the last second, and still took about 25% of my health bar for perfectly parrying it. Now this version only has 3 phases, but the first phase is so much harder than the first 2 phases of that other one combined that it is, negligible. This one will fake you out a ton. He still does most of the same moves. He's just way more aggressive, does way more damage. But in my opinion, it's easier to learn. Like, you can pretty much perfectly parry him. I moved on pretty quickly. But I would say that the hardest boss, hands down, the hardest part of this boss, hands down, is the second phase 100%. I don't know what kind of crack they were on when they made this phase, but it is just so ridiculous. This is... I did all this in one sitting, that other boss and this one. Enter Isshin as well as the Sword Saint. Enter Isshin took me maybe 45 minutes. This took me like 2.5 hours. This is the result of 2.5 hours of attempts. Even after I was already familiar with his moveset from the, base game version. It is ridiculous. You get hit twice, you're dead. No matter what. He will just instantly kill you. His moves do ridiculous amounts of posture damage. And he can regenerate posture so quick it makes almost all of your attacks pointless. You have to be constantly laying on pressure. I have to use my firecrackers here to keep his posture bar from depleting too quickly. Because, even if you just take a break, heal, and then go immediately right back in, his posture has already gone down, and you have to attack him like 5 more times to build it back up. And he also has that move right there, which I have no idea how you're supposed to deal with. Maybe you're supposed to parry it. You're definitely not supposed to dodge it, because it will read your mind no matter where you go. You go behind him, it'll read your mind. It always knows where you are, and it will always kill you. And even if you parry it, you're taking damage, so I just decided to tank it and take way more damage, because that's obviously the way you're supposed to deal with it. But other than that, this phase is ridiculous. I fought this for 2 hours, still have no idea how to dodge that move right there. And as you can see, that's why I died. But luckily I did the first phase perfectly, so I still have my respawn. And you have to just go in constantly, no matter what health you're on. You can get the Makiri counter for some good posture build-up. But other than that, you're really kind of just surviving. There's never really a point in this fight where you're winning. You kind of just parry the couple moves that you can, like that one. Get an Immortal Blade if you can. I'm trying to conserve my Spirit Emblems because I know that I'm going to need them for the third phase, which turns out I didn't really need. But better to have them and not need them than not have them. And right here, this is the first time I had ever killed that phase. I had never gotten to phase 3 in 2 hours of attempts. So on the first phase of... on my first fight of phase 3, I won first try, which is kind of similar to the other version. The third phase is kind of just a here, this is your reward for beating the second phase. We know that was really hard. The third one's really easy. His posture regains infinitely slower. His lightning attack is basically a free, third of his health and a third of his posture bar. And fortunately for me, I finally actually decided to play the game correctly and dodge or counter his lightning properly, so that worked out for me, because I would have cried if I got here and didn't kill him. But at this point I can see that his posture bar is getting pretty low. I know pretty much how to parry everything at this point. I use my firecrackers that I saved up there to get in a few extra hits, and unfortunately die, but I respawn quickly because I just finished his second phase and I had my respawn back. Parry those two. There's only like a couple moves you guys left. Get the Makiri counter, it's over. But this specific version no one talks about, and it was so difficult. In terms of difficulty, I don't know if I'd put it over Melania or Radon. I don't think I would. I don't think it's top 2. But I'd say it's right under or around Orphan of Kos, sitting at around 3rd or 4th place, difficulty speaking. This one deserves to be talked about more, and I don't really see people talking about it that much, so I'm just a little confused about that. But just wanted to show you this and give some tips if you're thinking about playing it.